We finally got it. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We're going to go through a recap of the semifinals of the Monte Carlo Masters and preview the final between Sinner and Alcaraz. Can't wait to do it. Let's get started. First semifinal was Alcaraz against Vacherot, and this was actually the second semifinal, played second, but it is the top of the draw, so we'll go over this one first. Uh, Great match from Alcaraz. Vacherot obviously coming in, has the crowd on his side. Good for Alcaraz to get that early break and just kind of ride the momentum to the first set. I thought that kind of took a little bit of the energy out of the crowd. I feel like if it was 4-all in the first set, it would have been a little bit trickier for Alcaraz to kind of make it happen there. But for him to kind of ride that break through the whole first set, that definitely helps. Vacherot trying to play from behind. It's already tough enough to beat Carlos Alcaraz. The last thing you want to do is have to come from behind against him. In the second set, again, a little bit more of the same. Vacherot able to break back, though, and then the crowd starts to get into it. It gets a little bit tricky. We had, I think it was 4-3 Vacherot up on Carlos's serve, 30-15 for Vacherot. So 2 points away from maybe getting a break and serving out for a 6-3 set. Carlos able to come up with some big shots there to get the hold. And a couple of things that really impressed me from Carlos were, number one, the return. The way he was able to return the Vacherot serve and just put pressure on him immediately. Vacherot had to earn a lot of points on his serve, which, against like previous guys, didn't really have that much pressure in doing. Obviously, Demonar, great returner as well. The second thing was the drop shots that Alcaraz used, and we talked about the drop shots of Sinner. We'll talk about who's going to win that battle in the finals, but Alcaraz using that to perfection today. When you have such a big forehand, to be able to disguise it and back it up with a drop shot like that, it really does help because you have a guy like Vacherot that isn't sure where you're going to hit it. Plus, the legs might be a little bit tired. I will say we didn't really see a lot of fatigue from him, or at least signs of fatigue. I thought he played very well as he could. Whether this was a third round match or a semifinal match, I think this was going to be a similar result no matter what. But they get to 4-all, and it's 40-15 Vacherot. So on his serve, you think, okay, we're going to get another hold. This is probably going to go to a breaker. And Vacherot hits this weird pickup shot in the middle of the point. Carlos gets to the ball, redrops it, but touches the net before the point is over. So this is a really interesting call, won by the ref, because you could hear them question whether Carlos can actually challenge that shot. Now, I'm not sure what the rule is, but I thought it was that if there was a question about a shot mid-point, that the player has to stop immediately. So Carlos didn't stop. He played the point out, and then afterwards was like, hey, that shot that Vacherot hit, that is not a legal shot. And the umpire really didn't question any of that, and she immediately said you could hear it on the comms. She immediately said, no, yes, he can review it. So maybe I'm wrong. I thought that they have to stop the point immediately if there's a hindrance, if there is something. You remember in Miami they had the scoreboard kind of flashing sometimes, and then they would stop and review it. Okay, yes, it happened. We're replaying the point. Carlos loses the challenge anyways because Vacherot, it was a legal shot from Vacherot. It just bounced and then he hit it kind of weirdly. Nice pickup from him. I do have a question about that rule though. I'm gonna have to look that up later. But it felt like the momentum of Vacherot was stopped in its tracks. He comes out with a double fault followed by a missed forehand, And now we're looking at deuce. Carlos hits an amazing shot to get the ad, and then a drop shot to hold. And those 4 points, I mean, so after that controversial, quote, controversial moment, Alcaraz won all but 2 points. So he closes out the match at 40-30. Vacherot only wins 2 points after that controversial point. It felt like the energy was kind of zapped away from him. He lost his focus a little bit. They didn't have the camera on him that much. It was more on like Carlos and the umpire. So very interesting stuff there, and that's a shame because I think if they had just played through, he probably was going to hold there. He was in his groove, he was going, and he probably would have held for 5-4. But not to be. Great match by Carlos. Ends it on a drop shot, unreturned by Vacherot. We talked about, how Carlos was going to challenge the movement, the up and back movement of Vacherot, and to test the legs of him, having Vacherot played almost 10 hours of tennis prior to this match. Carlos Alcaraz advances 6-4, 6-4 to the finals. Let's take a look at the second semifinal. The next semifinal was between Sinner and Zverev. Sinner moving to 9-4 now in their head-to-head. He's won 8 straight matches, just turning this head-to-head completely reverse against Zverev. And, what can we say? We've talked about this matchup over and over again. The last 3 semifinals, it seems to be the same story. Here on the clay, we noticed it's just a little bit tougher. The ball isn't bouncing as fast on Sinner. Sinner's got a lot of time. And one thing that I noticed too, Sinner starting back a lot on the Zverev serve, basically just content to kind of get the ball back in play on the return, just make Zverev play some of these rallies out. Sinner knows he can get a handle of the point a lot easier than Zverev would be able to. I'm curious to see if we're going to see that type of return stance from Sinner tomorrow. I highly doubt it because he needs to be a little bit more aggressive to defend against the Alcaraz serve +1. Let's take a look at these numbers quickly here from Zverev. 59% first serves in. He won 44% of those. That is not good. He's got to do a lot better than that. Won 60% of his second serve points and was broken 4 times. Sinner, on the other hand, 59% first serves, won 87% of the first service points, won 75% of his second service points. We saw these numbers a little bit in Miami where he just wasn't pressured at all on his serve. Zverev having a few points, I think, in Miami to have an opportunity to break, but here, not even close. I mean, this was just a pure domination, and we do see Zverev trying to be a little bit more aggressive on the court, and that makes sense. The problem is it's not really his style to be like just ripping shots. And I feel like, like the way that you would see a Fonseca doing it, I get it. Zverev has a good serve +1. But I'm talking about, being able to get a return back, play 2 shots, and then rip a shot. Now, a lot of their points in this match were under 9 shots. Sinner winning the majority of them, obviously. But you could tell that there was definitely an effort by Zverev to keep the points shorter and try to be the aggressor in those points. A few too many errors from him on that end. But we are seeing him try to be a little bit more aggressive. I think he understands that he's not going to be able to play some of these long rallies, 10-plus shot rallies against the Sinners and the Alcarazes of the world on clay. He needs to find a way to make the point a little bit quicker, whether it's hitting an aggressive forehand or what he's been doing, a lot of serve and volley we saw recently. So could be trying to do that as well. Another big thing that we saw from Sinner, the drop shot looked great today. He used that pretty effectively against Felix last match yesterday and was able to implement the same exact thing against Zverev, when you have guys that are very deep in their position on the base and rallying, and they're threatened by your large shots, throwing in a drop set is extremely effective to get them moving forward in an uncomfortable position. So Sinner able to do that. Are we going to see it against Carlos? Probably not as much. We know Carlos does play a little bit closer to the baseline, and he's got that speed and touch to get a ball like that back. So I wouldn't expect to see too much of that tomorrow. Sinner, 4 for 4 on break points. I mean, that's huge. It felt like, well, the first set was over in about 30 minutes, but it felt like in the second set, every time Zverev stepped up to serve, there was just so much pressure on him to win a point, and that's tough, especially when you have that good of a serve as Zverev. We're talking about one of the best serves in the world. The way he's able to hold, the way he's able to produce a serve plus one, but against these top two guys, it just isn't effective. So we do see Zverev trying to find another way to be a little bit more threatening against these guys, because obviously he's got great numbers against people that aren't Alcaraz and Sinner. Like, he's making it out to the semis of all these Masters tournaments. Good win here for Sinner. He wins 6-1, 6-4 to advance to the final. Let's take a look at the final. And now we get the match that we've been waiting months for this year, a rematch of that French Open final. We have Jannik Sinner taking on Carlos Alcaraz. I cannot wait to watch this match. This is going to be top-notch tennis here. Both guys playing pretty well. Head-to-head is 6-11. 11 wins for Carlos over Sinner. Let's take a look at the previous matchups here. We'll go through their 6 matches. Let's go through each of their 6 matches last year. They met in Rome in the finals. Alcaraz able to win 7-6, 6-1. They met in Paris in the French Open. This was where Sinner had multiple match points and loses the match to Alcaraz. Alcaraz wins 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6. They play in Wimbledon, and Sinner is able to take that 4-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. They played in the final of Cincinnati. That was a 5-0 retirement from Sinner, so Alcaraz takes that one. And then they played in the finals of the U.S. Open. Alcaraz able to win that 6-2, 3-6, 6-1, 6-4. And their last match was won by Sinner in Turin in the ATP Finals, 7-6, 7-5. And you guys remember, that was home soil for Sinner. He plays very well on the indoor hard courts. We never really get the best from Carlos towards the end of the year, and I think that's just because of how physical and aggressive his style is. So I'm not sure how much I want to put weight on there. They've met 5 times on the clay, and Carlos is 4-1 in the head-to-head. The weirdest stat that I saw is both players have had 5 hours and 59 minutes on court. I don't know how that figured out to be the exact same time, but that's kind of wild. If that's actually true, that's what I'm seeing right here. 5 hours 59 minutes on the site that I always read here from here, guys. This is also extremely important for the number 1 ranking. We have Alcaraz trying to defend his crown here against Sinner, who had no points to defend because of that ban last year. So this will be very interesting, and if Sinner doesn't take the number 1 spot here, he will be one step closer to doing it. But I do told you guys earlier, I loved Alcaraz's mentality of, it doesn't, the number one to me, it doesn't matter. I'm focused more on my matches, my game, improving my game, and the results are going to come. So I love that attitude there. Let's talk about Sinner's path here to the Monte Carlo final. Beats Humbert 6-3, 6-0. Beats Mahach 6-1, 6-7, 6-3. That was his first set loss. Remember, he had that 30, I think it was 30-0 or 31-0 in sets. And Mahach able to take one. Mahach was up a break in that set, too. Sinner then beats Felix in the quarterfinals 6-3, 6-4. Beats Zverev 6-1, 6-4 in the semis. Alcaraz, on the other hand, beats Baez 6-1, 6-3. Echeverry 6-1, 4-6, 6-3. And we talk about Echeverry. A lot of success there from Echeverry. He's having a great clay season. Won Rio over in Brazil. So good win there for Carlos. And Carlos takes out Bublik in the quarterfinals 6-3, 6-0. And Vacherot today in the semis 6-4, 6-4. Alcaraz coming in with a 4-0 record, his 4 wins in Monte Carlo. He was 22-1 last year, 17-4 the year before. Sinner, on the other hand, 4-0 also in his 4 wins in Monte Carlo, 11-2 last year and 11-2 the year before. So a lot of consistency there from Sinner. And we know that Sinner has been dominating. He is 23-2 on the year. Alcaraz 21-2 on the year. So extremely impressive numbers from these guys. This is obviously going to be a very tricky matchup. It's extremely hard to pick one or the other. I think they're very close competitors, and I obviously think that there are very similar to the Rafa Roger rivalry. There's always going to be new facets to their game that they might not have shown in the previous matches that they've played against Zverev, Aliassime, and Vacherot, Bublik. There might be certain little things that they've been working on just to apply to the other guy because they know this is where it's going to matter the most. These are going to be the finals of the Masters tournaments, of the Grand Slam tournaments. So look out for those things. For me, both guys hitting the drop shot exceptionally well. Carlos's drop shot, I think, is a little bit. I like Carlos's drop shot a little bit better, just because it's disguised very well behind that big, heavy forehand that he hits. And Sinner's drop shot, I'll be very curious to see if he's going to be able to have success there the way he had against Zverev today and Felix the day before. But because of Carlos's speed. We did talk about in a couple videos ago about how I felt like Sinner's ground strokes don't seem to be as penetrating on this court as normal. And yes, I get it. Clay is slower, but like watching Felix, Mahach, Zverev to a point. Zverev, that score is reflective of a lot of the Zverev errors. But when they were rallying, I think Zverev was still able to kind of hang in some of those rallies. Obviously, Sinner, if you leave that ball short a little bit, Sinner's all over that. And Zverev left a lot of balls short today, made a lot of errors. But Felix and Mahach able to just kind of sit back on the baseline and grind with Sinner, and that to me makes me a little bit concerned. Is Carlos going to see this ball is he going to be able to hit this ball pretty clean tomorrow? I got to give the net game to Alcaraz. I love the way that he's able to come in off that forehand. He's able to take advantage. We've noticed in a lot of these tournaments in the most recent months, Carlos is trying to impose himself a little bit more on the net to quicken the points, but also in this scenario against Sinner to put pressure on him and rush him and challenge that movement. Sinner loves to sit on the baseline. He loves taking the ball early, but if you start to really rush him a little bit, that's where it might become a little bit difficult for him to hit his shots as clean and to be comfortable. If you're asking Sinner to come up with a winner a little bit earlier than he's comfortable to doing, that could be a problem as well. This is a toss up for me, guys. I really do think I'm gonna go with Alcaraz to win this. I think he's playing the better clay court tennis right now. I gotta give that to him over Sinner. Um, Looking at that head to head, so Sinner has not beaten Carlos on the clay since 2022 in Umag. So, and obviously the French Open, he really should have had that, and he played a great match. And that's the one thing that's part of the reason why I'm a little bit shaky on picking Carlos. Like I feel like Carlos is playing the better clay court tennis right now, but we have a Yannick Sinner who's coming off 2 Master Series wins, who is looking for revenge. Yes, he won his last matchup, but he remembers that French Open final, and now they're back on the dirt, and he's looking for a little bit more revenge. So that's another thing that it just makes me a little bit hesitant to take Alcaraz. But I gotta do it. Again, guys, like when you're pressured in these situations, 50-50 chance. I mean, you gotta go with the guy that one has a head to head, two is trusted on this surface. I gotta go with Carlos. Could I see Sinner winning? Yeah. I'm gonna take Alcaraz to win in straight sets. I know that sounds crazy. I think it's gonna be like a 7-6, 7-5 type thing. Give me Alcaraz in straights. Here's a look at the semifinal records. For me, I predicted both matches correctly. Sinner and Alcaraz advancing to the final, and I believe I said both were going to be in straight sets. Pamplemousse said both were going to be in straight sets for Sinner and Alcaraz. So congrats to us. Good looks there. Undefeated in the semifinals, but picking the two favorites. We'll see how we do in the final. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We will have a draw reaction out for the Barcelona Open and a draw reaction out for the Munich Open coming out later tonight. So look out for those to keep up on everything tennis. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.